Hello there and welcome to Fieldstudy, an exploration of food and the landscape. In this week's episode, I'm going to be harvesting the first of the wild garlic and showing you guys an excellent way to preserve the wild plants that you forage for. Stay tuned. So a few weeks ago I was walking in this patch of woodland and I found something I didn't expect to see. All the way along the pathway and in and amongst the leaf litter were the tiny shoots of wild garlic popping their heads up, which is always an exciting sight, but this is incredibly early. Usually this wouldn't happen until a couple of weeks into February or in early March. But I've come back now a few weeks later to take my first harvest of the season. So at this time of year, the first sign of the wild garlic you might see is these beautiful pale green clumps emerging from the leaf litter. Now, all members of the allium family, the onion family, are monocotyledon plants, which means that they give out a single seed leaf. Other monocots include grass, and the best way that I can describe a wild garlic leaf is a blade. So when you're out foraging for wild garlic, you're looking for these blade-like leaf structures that go into a point at the end. They'll have a singular rib down the middle of the leaf, and when they flower, they'll have these beautiful explosions of white flowers. But the main way to identify wild garlic is by the smell. So if you crush it up like this in your hands and you give it a good old sniff, it will smell like spring onions and garlic and has a really strong oniony smell. And if you've got that really strong garlicky smell, then you know you're onto a winner. Wild garlic season is one of the things that gets me through the darkness of the winter. And that smell is just insane. So the place that I've come to forage today is in between about 8 or 9 huge colonies of wild garlic. So I know taking a small early harvest like this isn't going to do those colonies any harm. Always make sure that you forage and pick wild plants sustainably, so only take a few leaves from each plant. And trust me, with this stuff, a little goes a long way. Right, with that being said, let's head back to Fieldstudy HQ and I'm going to show you one of my absolute favourite ways to preserve wild plants for use in the kitchen. Stay tuned. Before going foraging for wild garlic, be sure to check out my previous video where I show you one of the most common poisonous lookalikes. We're back here at Fieldstudy HQ and I'm going to show you one of my favourite recipes for preserving wild plants. Now, one of the things about foraging, especially at this time of year when we've got minimal hours of daylight, is that sometimes it can be a bit of a struggle to find the time to go and find wild edible things to eat. So preservation recipes like this mean that you always have something that you can go and grab from your store cupboard and have something wild and nutritious in your diet. We're going to be preserving these wild garlic leaves in salt. Now, it's possibly one of the oldest recipes in the book. So all over Europe, recipes like this one are referred to as soup stocks or salt stocks. And they are a way of preserving what is good and seasonal for up to a year. Now, I say recipe, but that is too much of a grandiose term for what we're about to do. So take your wild garlic leaves. These are them lovely, fresh, young wild garlic leaves that we've got, the early season ones. And take a nice sharp knife and we are going to roll them up like this and start chopping. And you want to chop these as finely as possible. So what we're looking for consistency wise is a rough paste. So basically just keep chopping. So you can do this the old-fashioned way with a knife like I'm doing, or you can use a blender or a food processor or one of them old mincer things that clamp onto the table. They work good as well. But basically you just want to break this down and break this down until it resembles a bit of a paste. You can smush it like that against the thing. That'll help break the cell walls down even more to give out all of them lovely juices. And this is smelling absolutely insane. I can't wait for wild garlic season to get into full swing. So this is the sort of consistency that we're looking for. So grab your herbs and put them in a bowl. This works amazingly with all sorts of different wild edibles. So you can use other alliums like three-cornered leek as the base stock for it. I like quite an oniony base to the soup stock. At this time of year, you can also throw in lots of other wild edible plants like hairy bittercress and cleavers and Alexanders and stuff like that, and just tweak it to the flavour profile that you really want. And it is a fantastic thing. And once you get the ratios right of different things, you can make your own soup stock recipe, and yeah, you can nail it and get it right every single time. Now the trick to making this all work is salt and the ratio of salt that we use. So you're going to want to add 15 to 20% salt by weight. So firstly, if you want to be exact, you've got to weigh your leaf matter after you've chopped it up. And that will give you an idea of how much salt you're going to have to put in. So then do the calculation, find out what 15% is or 20% is. I always do 15%. This isn't lacto-fermentation, by the way. So lacto-fermentation, you use the salt to subdue the other microbes to let lactobacillus, which is a type of bacteria, get to work and start to break down the vegetable. And that sort of fermentation is very good, very healthy for you, and we're going to tackle that a little bit later on down the line, I promise you. But this is not that. So just to put things in perspective, lacto fermentation takes about 2% salt by weight. So in order to keep out all of the bad microbes and have just the lactobacillus, you use 2% salt by weight. Now for this, you're using 15% or 20%. So you really are making it uninhabitable to spoiling microbes and things that might make it go bad. So I always do 15% salt. Some people like to do 20% salt. It really is whatever you're comfortable with, and also whatever tastes right to your palate. So it really is worth making big batches of this stuff. I'm just doing a small batch here just so we can talk through the process. But as soon as wild garlic season hits, I will be going to town on this recipe. So once you've added your salt to the herb mix, massage it in a little bit and then put it in a sterilised jar and seal the lid. Now your imagination is your limit when it comes to making a soup recipe like this. If you can forage for it, you can most definitely whack it in here. So in here we've got early nettle tops, we've got cleavers, we've got ground ivy in here, we've got some field mushroom powder from last year from the field mushroom identification video that I did, and we've also got some dried chilies because I like a little bit of spice. But things you can put in here as well to make the soup even more delicious is miso paste. You can mix a bit of miso paste in there just to give it that lovely silky umami sort of thing going on. Leave it for a few days in the jar before you crack it open and start eating it, or leave it for a few months. And the longer you leave it, the more the salt will get to work breaking down the cell walls, and it will give out more and more of its lovely, delicious juices. Add a teaspoon of it to hot water, let it steep for a good 5 minutes, and then sit back and enjoy. Now, if that didn't get you excited, this might. So, you might think that I've just talked you through how to make a delicious soup stock, but this is so much more. This is a delicious and versatile seasoning paste. So for all of you hardcore barbecue heads out there who, as soon as the daffodils come out, are out looking to cook outdoors and in the garden, you have just made yourself a delicious wild spice rub. So it is a pretty killer marinade. Let it out with a little bit of vinegar. You can add a little pinch of sugar if you like and marinate some stuff in. You can brush it on chicken before you roast it to impart all of that lovely wild garlic flavour. Another thing you can do is add a teaspoon of it to a low salt stock cube and then use that stock to make a risotto, and it just imparts all of that lovely wild garlic, herbaceous, wild flavour, and it's an incredible base note to build stuff up on. So a lovely Ramsons risotto with some pea shoots on top. So there we go. Go out there and have a play with this recipe. Let me know what you guys get up to with it, what variations you come up with as the seasons start to progress and change. So there we go, guys. Thank you for watching. As always, if you enjoyed it, click the like button and hit subscribe for more foraging videos from this beautiful landscape. Until next week, take care.